This is a special edition of the business news of Georgia and the world on TV3. I am Nugzarukhadze. How do you do? Isn't Russia an interesting country? It has just about everything: vast lands, deep waters, rich minerals, great vodkas, the precious darling of the nation, Putin, and guess what? A newly created movable administrative line between Georgia and the so-called South Ossetian region. In practical sense, a border with Russia. This is a cute little but a very funny border. It can move back and forth anytime the brave Russian soldiers are given a chance to play with it. The fussy border guards have lots of barbed wires and poles, and they are sometimes equipped with construction materials and tools in case they get tired of wires and want to build a wall between Georgia and Georgia. This has lately become the most amusing pastime for the imperial Russia, impressing the world with their quick and skillful moves to alternate the scenery for this spooky geopolitical show. The performance has a huge number of spectators around the world, watching it from long distances with the help of GPS. Only the Georgians are watching it live. The Europeans are good at writing critical articles and pronouncing enthused speeches about the situation on our northern movable administrative line. Americans are not very good at reading into the script deeper because they are terribly busy with other shows around the world. Asians and Africans do not know exactly where it is happening, so their reaction is slow. If by any chance they get a clue, they earnestly enjoy it because they love anything the Russians are doing, even if it is not in a very attractive style. The observing international organizations are perennially observing bodies that are devoid of any power and desire to stop the Russian weirdness on our movable border. The poor Georgians are sitting and eating their hearts out, waiting with tears in their eyes for the next move of the administrative line, suspecting a Russian conspiracy, but proudly stating that they will never again swallow the bait. Their wise American and European friends are teaching them not to jump on the evil bait when Russia makes Georgia feel guilty for its Western political orientation. The Russians have never ever had felt this free to tinker with the configuration of the border with Georgia, practically doing anything they want, and the world watching them with occasional reprimands, flimsy whining, and feeble shoulder shrugging. Hardly heard and seen around. What can the world do for Georgia at a moment like this? Go to war with Russia for Georgia? Excluded. Scare Russia with threats and warnings? Impossible. Because Russia does not care a dime. Let Georgia fight alone with Russia? Makes no sense. What if Russia moves the discussed administrative line all the way to Tbilisi? When are Georgia and the rest of the world going to give the crucial scream? Where is that unbearable limit when the pain could no longer be tolerated? What will happen if Russia invades Georgia tonight and takes over its government? Will America make another Kuwait or the United Kingdom another Falkland out of it? Doubtful. Will the world start making noise? Yes. How long will the noise-making last? Forever. The feeling is that Georgia is falling apart and there is nobody to put it back together, except Russia. Are we giving up? If we are not, then why the movable border is being tolerated so much? Do we have any instrument in our fragile hands to stop the Russians who are definitely coming? The movable border is a very serious historical play, now produced by the Russians in a more subtle way than ever before. This is a very, very, very sinister game. We have prepared for you a special report from the northern administrative line of Georgia with the occupied XII region, which Russia is gradually moving towards the south in the direction of our capital city. Now stopping the movement, then moving again, dragging its ominous demarcation toys around. Why Russia? Because it is Russia who is in charge there, nobody else. Forget about our good old brothers Ossetians. Nobody is asking them anything there. Traveling around Georgia has always been a matter of huge delight for me. But a trip towards our ever-moving northern administrative line with the South Ossetian region, where the Russian-made barbed wire fence is in store for me to stumble over, is truly heartbreaking. Our TV3 has mobilized its journalistic forces right here on Georgia's northern border. This is Georgian territory, and over this demarcation line there is the territory of XII region, which is controlled by Russia. We are here to finally understand what Russia is doing with this part of the Georgian border and how Georgia should react. This is the village of Dvani. These days, attention of world politics is focused on two Georgian villages of Shida-Kartli, Ditsi and Dvani. Once again, Russian occupation force has moved the so-called South Ossetian border deeper into the Kartli region, and now they have moved it back again. Meanwhile, the local population here is getting very nervous, not knowing what to do. Scared to death, some of them had even started dismantling their houses in a hurry because several houses of villagers happened to be left beyond the newly drawn administrative line. They simply wanted to find a safer place for their dwellings, although they have no idea where they could go. Over 300 families, that is more than 2,000 people of Georgian origin, live in the Dvani village. The Russian military personnel and the Border Protection Department of so-called South Ossetia blocked up the village road with reinforced concrete slabs, drew the line of demarcation, and erected the signboard indicating the border of the Republic of South Ossetia. Most of the villagers were left without their plots of land, their orchards and their pastures. Population of the village that had been living in hard-hitting hardship up to date were robbed of the chance to earn their crust. This was happening several days ago. This is not about a former borderline. This is about the people who are living here, about their families, their homes, their property, their kids, their human happiness, and their future.
Ever since I could remember anything, we have been tilling this ground and feeding our families with the harvest this land yielded to us. Now I can't imagine how we'll keep our families. I can't tell you exactly, but most likely our village will lose 150 to 200 hectares of land. I guess only small pieces of homestead land will be left for us. Nobody can subsist on that tiny piece of land.
If the situation does not improve,
I don't know. It's difficult to face permanent danger and live half-starving. After the 2008 war, our social conditions got worse. Headworks of watering and drinking water happen to be on the Ossetian side, which permanently causes problems. Besides, we have no gas in the village, and actually we don't know where to go, where to settle.
This house is not just a ruined house. This is a house which was deliberately dismantled by the owner because the border line has covered this plot of land. So the owner is taking away somewhere to build it, or keep it when time comes, he will have an opportunity to build it somewhere else.
will you leave this place? I'm a daughter-in-law of this village. My family is on the list of socially unprotected people. Recently, we somehow managed to buy a refrigerator. and I was worried that thanks to it we would lose the status of a socially unprotected family. And now we have no idea how we are going to live and maintain the family. These lands belong to our village. We were cultivating them. The Ossetians lie when they say that the Georgians were not using them. Until 2008, there were fruit gardens, orchards, maize fields there. After the watering system happened to stay on the other side of occupation line, they cut off water supply and we could no longer grow good crop. Still, we used them as pastures, and now we are losing even them.
Based on what we see here, this country is in a serious trouble. There is a northern neighbor which methodically and cynically is snatching our territories away, and there is no way to stop it. This lady comes from Znauri. She has been displaced from her house and homestead once, and she found shelter at her relative's home. Now, new displacement is awaiting for her. Eyes of the 85-year-old Georgi grandpa are filled with tears. His hands tremble when he talks to us, but he stands firm on his decision. He won't budge from his homestead, even if he has to give up his life instead. Unfortunately, these people with whom we have been talking are no exception. Today, entire village, over its 2,000 residents, live by common grief and fear. The status of displaced persons and vague future awaits them at their own homeland. This is where the sign says the Republic of South Ossetia starts. Well, Russians call it a new political reality. For Georgians, this is Georgia, their historical territory. This was the picture on the Georgian-Ossetian administrative line several days ago. Now they are saying that the Russian military have removed the fence posts from the place, which is certainly good news, better than nothing. But who knows what other tricks our neighbors might have up their dark and spacious sleeve for us. The number of war refugees is ever growing in Georgia. This is the most burning political problem for us. The entire nation is thinking about solving it, but the solution is not arriving so far. Kote Mosidze of TV3 has tried to have another look into the picture.
What you see here is a very sad reality caused by the August 2008 Russian-Georgian War.
My family always used to live in poverty. After the August War of 2008, our financial situation got worse, and so now we live from hand to mouth. My working capacity has declined as a result of car accident. Therefore, finding a job became almost impossible for me. Even though I have worked for several years, present-day government left me without my job. On top of that, my husband died 10 years ago by tuberculosis. I have two sons. They are 19 and 8 years old. My family's daily concern is looking for little food in order to survive. Without the help of my neighbors, we would have died of starvation. My elder son, who is a student, often cannot go to the university because I have no money to give him. My family is supposed to get 78 lari every month, but we get only 28 lari because we owe money to the bank. We don't have a computer, though my son needs it for his studies. We don't have even a TV set to watch this reporting on your channel. Often they cut off electricity because we cannot pay for it. I lay my hopes only on God. That's all we hope for.
There are 332,000 refugees in Georgia, of which 32,000 are from the August War. Now, the tricky question is if the number of refugees increases as a result of the so-called crawling occupation perpetuated by the Russian side in Georgia.
Right in the middle of moving back and forth the administrative line between Georgia proper and the occupied territory of the South Ossetian region, I have talked with the Doctor of Political Science, Zurab Abashidze, who represents the Prime Minister of Georgia in matters connected with Russia. He gave me a succinct but exact formula of what is currently going on between the two countries.
The recent impression was that the Russian-Georgian relations have improved a little, but Russia remains adamant about its aggressive attitude towards Georgia. Why?
Well, the Russian answer to this question would be, this is a direct result and outcome of 2008 war. The current improvement of trade relations between Russia and Georgia has nothing to do with so-called borderization. And if you want to have dialogue on these matters, please go and talk to the newly independent states of South Ossetia and Abkhazia. Of course, such an approach is not acceptable for us at all.
Is moving of the administrative line within the South Ossetian region by the Russian military fair or unfair? Internationally legal or illegal? Temporary or permanent?
Well, Russia thinks this is legal. Of course, in our view, which shares almost the whole world, is that this is contrary to any international law and any international humanitarian norms and standards. Whether it is permanent or temporary, I am optimist. I think that it cannot last forever.
They have now taken back their fence posts, probably for a while, continuing their weird and evil cat-and-mouse territorial game with Georgia. There is probably a good chance out there for Georgia and Russia to rectify the situation without a vestige of detriment for any of these sides of the conflict. After all, this is all in human hands, so it is possible to handle it finally. But probably the problem is in a good and powerful political will for both sides to use to be a little better off. The situation is a real curse for both Russia and Georgia, and they both need to be stronger in their readiness to let the good work and smarter in their decisions to defeat the evil together. Well, this sounds a little romantic for hot politics, but veritable enough to honestly state. That's all today. Thank you so much for watching us and thinking together with us. I am Nugzarukhadze, and I'll see you again next Sunday morning right here at TV3 at 11 a.m. Now, many cheers and have a great evening.